Desire and darkness. When passion is buried, it does not vanish, it mutates. What is denied in the daylight often returns at night, in dreams, or in sudden outbursts we cannot explain. Jung called it the shadow, the hidden self that lives beneath the mask of purity. Carl Jung believed that every human being carries within them a shadow, the collection of instincts, impulses, and desires that society, religion, or personal morality force us to repress. We tell ourselves we are virtuous, pure, enlightened. But behind that polished mirror lies something older and more primal. Rage, lust, envy, hunger. And here lies the paradox Jung pointed out. The more a person insists on appearing pure, the stronger their shadow grows in secret. A priest who proclaims holiness might wrestle with forbidden cravings. A scholar who denounces desire may be haunted by dreams of ecstasy and sin. The shadow is like a beast locked in the basement, silent for years, until the door cracks open. History offers countless examples. In medieval monasteries, strict vows of celibacy were designed to conquer the flesh. Yet archives tell us of scandals where monks and priests were discovered breaking their vows. The very structure that tried to suppress desire often fed it, transforming ordinary passion into a monster of secrecy and guilt. In psychology, this is what Jung meant. What we repress does not die, it becomes distorted. A shadow can emerge in strange dreams, violent, erotic, surreal, or in sudden acts of rage and obsession that seem out of character. Have you ever wondered why someone who speaks of moral perfection suddenly falls into scandal? Jung would say, the shadow demanded its time. Take the case of certain Buddhist monks across history. In Japan's Heian period, some records describe monks who secretly engaged in affairs, unable to suppress human passion despite vows of celibacy. To their followers, they seemed ascetic and pure. But behind temple walls, desire leaked through. Their shadow, hidden beneath layers of ritual, still found a way to breathe. Or think of the many moral reformers throughout Western history who thundered against sexuality in public sermons, yet were later caught in private transgressions. The louder the voice of purity, the deeper the well of repression. Jung himself remarked that the shadow is most dangerous when it is denied. The shadow is not always sexual. It can be jealousy, aggression, greed, or cruelty. But sexuality reveals it most dramatically because society has long treated desire as something shameful. In the Victorian age, respectable women were expected to embody chastity and virtue. Yet diaries, letters, and secret trials reveal a hidden world of affairs, desires, and double lives. The repression of women's passion did not erase it. It made it burn more fiercely, sometimes breaking out in acts of defiance that scandalized entire communities. Consider the case of Mary Wollstonecraft in the 18th century, an intellectual and fierce critic of societal hypocrisy. Her own writings reveal the torment of living in a culture that demanded purity from women while granting freedom to men. Her life and relationships illustrate the struggle of confronting a society that tried to repress female desire, turning it into something dangerous, almost monstrous in the public imagination. Jung might have said, society itself was projecting its shadow. The Victorian obsession with condemning sexuality was a mirror of its secret fascination. Literature of the time proves it. While public morality demanded purity, novels and plays were filled with characters torn between temptation and duty. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, for example, is almost a parable of the shadow. Jekyll is the respectable self. Hyde is the repressed monster unleashed. And what of dreams? Jung saw them as the royal road into the shadow. In dreams, polite masks fall away. A man who prides himself on kindness might dream of violence. A woman who clings to virtue might dream of forbidden passion. The dream is not sin. It is the psyche's attempt to balance what has been denied. Yet people often wake ashamed, confused, even afraid of their own imagination. Jung warned that refusing to face the shadow leads to destruction. The more it is ignored, the more violently it breaks free. It may appear as sudden obsession, addiction, or destructive behavior. Or it may twist into projection when we accuse others of the very impulses we cannot admit in ourselves. This is why communities sometimes persecute sinners with extraordinary cruelty. The mob is not punishing only the other person, it is lashing out at its own shadow, reflected back like a dark mirror. Think of the witch trials in Europe. Entire villages condemned women for lustful dealings with the devil. But many historians argue these were projections of the community's own fears and desires. Instead of acknowledging the shadow within, they hunted it in others. Jung would say the witch was a scapegoat, a vessel onto which the shadow was projected. And yet, Jung did not see the shadow only as evil. It is also a source of vitality. Repressed passion, if acknowledged and integrated, can fuel creativity, love, and art. Many great works of literature, painting, and music were born from the artist's confrontation with their shadow. Shakespeare's tragedies are filled with characters undone by hidden desires. Caravaggio's paintings radiate both beauty and violence, as if the shadow itself touched the canvas. But most people fear this confrontation. To admit the shadow is to admit we are not entirely pure. That beneath the polite mask, something raw and untamed still waits. Jung compared it to wrestling with an inner dragon. Some try to slay the dragon, but those who are wise learn to tame it, to ride it, to transform its fire into light. And so the question becomes, what happens when a society, a religion, or an individual denies the shadow for too long? What monsters rise from the basement when desire is silenced? In the next part, we'll step deeper into this dark labyrinth. We'll see how the shadow not only shapes individuals but also moves through entire cultures, hidden in myths, literature, and collective hysteria. Jung believed that humanity's greatest dangers are not outside us, but within us. The monsters are closer than we think. The mask and the beast. Jung often warned that civilizations, like individuals, wear masks. He called this mask the persona, the face we show the world. But behind every mask, there lurks the shadow. Cultures that insist too loudly on purity or order often conceal a simmering chaos beneath. Take ancient Greece, a society celebrated for philosophy and democracy. Beneath the marble temples and lofty ideals, their mythology revealed something darker. Zeus, king of the gods, is remembered not only for wisdom but for uncontrollable desires, pursuing countless mortal women and even disguising himself as animals to fulfill them. These myths were not accidents, they were mirrors of a truth. The Greeks understood that even gods, symbols of order, carried wild, untamed shadows. The Greeks did not deny this duality. Their tragedies, plays by Sophocles, Euripides, Aeschylus, unveiled the collapse that occurs when repressed impulses break through. Oedipus blinds himself when truth shatters his illusions. Pentheus, in the Bacha, tries to suppress Dionysian ecstasy, only to be torn apart by the frenzy he denied. For Jung, these myths were more than stories, they were warnings. Every mask of order hides a beast of chaos. The collective shadow. Jung extended the concept beyond individuals. Entire societies have shadows. He lived through 2 world wars and saw what happens when collective repression erupts. Germany, in the 1932nd, for example, projected its shadow outward onto scapegoated minorities. Instead of confronting its inner turmoil, the nation created a monstrous myth of purity and strength. The result was catastrophe. This is the danger of denial on a cultural scale. When a community insists it is wholly virtuous, wholly good, it often channels its darkness into hatred of others. Witch trials, inquisitions, genocides, all are examples of the collective shadow unleashed. The mob believes it is purging evil, but in truth, it is acting out its own hidden impulses. Jung believed this was why myths of demons and monsters appear in every culture. They are not merely tales of external threats. They are mirrors of the human psyche. The vampire, for example, can be read as a symbol of forbidden desire, seductive, dangerous, immortal. The werewolf embodies the beast within, breaking free under the full moon when reason sleeps. These creatures are not just fantasies, they are the shadow dressed in story. Art is a dialogue with darkness. While societies often fear the shadow, artists have long dared to speak with it. Art becomes a kind of negotiation, an attempt to bring light into the darkness without destroying it. Consider Dostoevsky, whose novels explore the torment of conscience, guilt, and desire. In Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov's crime is not only an act of violence but an eruption of the shadow. His descent into paranoia reflects the psychological truth Jung later articulated. When we deny our darker drives, they do not disappear, they haunt us until acknowledged. Or think of Gothic literature in the 19th century. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein tells of a scientist who creates life but cannot face the creature he has made. The monster, rejected and abandoned, becomes violent. Jung might have said, Frankenstein's creation is the shadow what happens when humanity's hidden impulses are born but denied love or integration. Even modern cinema continues this dialogue. In films like Black Swan or Fight Club, characters are torn between the disciplined persona and the wild shadow. Audiences are captivated because we recognize ourselves in the struggle. The screen becomes a mirror, reflecting what we fear to admit. Dreams, the secret stage. For Jung, dreams were the nightly stage where the shadow performs. A dream might show a stranger chasing us, or a figure dressed in black, or an animal with glowing eyes. Often, the dream's villain is not an external enemy, it is a fragment of ourselves. Anthropologists have found similar patterns in indigenous cultures. Some Native American traditions describe shadow animals that appear in visions: wolves, snakes, owls carrying messages from the hidden self. In these traditions, unlike in the West, the shadow is not always demonized. It is respected as a teacher, a force that must be understood. This reflects Jung's insight. The shadow is not purely evil, it is simply the unacknowledged. In dreams, it tries to communicate. A violent dream may be the psyche's way of releasing suppressed anger. An erotic dream may signal unmet longing. To dismiss these dreams as meaningless is to ignore the whisper of the unconscious. To listen is to begin integration. The danger of projection. One of Jung's most powerful warnings was about projection. When we cannot face our shadow, we cast it onto others. We label them immoral, corrupt, dangerous when in truth they mirror what we fear in ourselves. History is filled with such projections. In Puritan New England, women accused of witchcraft were often midwives, healers, or simply independent spirits. They became vessels for the community's denied fears and desires. The witch hunt was not only about them, it was about the village refusing to confront its own hidden passions. Even in modern life, we see projection everywhere. The politician who condemns corruption but is later caught in scandal. The person who rails against immorality while secretly indulging in it. On a smaller scale, we accuse friends or partners of flaws that are, in truth, our own. Jung believed this was inevitable until we recognize the shadow and claim it as ours. Integrating the shadow. So, what is to be done? Jung did not preach repression or indulgence. Instead, he spoke of integration. To integrate the shadow is to acknowledge it honestly. Yes, I am capable of anger. Yes, I feel desire. Yes, I know envy. By admitting these truths, we prevent them from ruling us in secret. He compared it to alchemy, transforming lead into gold. The raw material, the shadow, is heavy, dark, and dangerous. But if faced with courage, it becomes energy for growth. Passion becomes creativity. Anger becomes strength. Even fear becomes wisdom. This is why Jung often quoted a line from Goethe, "Where there is fear, there is also salvation." The very things we dread to admit may hold the key to our wholeness. To meet the shadow is not to be destroyed, it is to become complete. The shadow in modern life. Jung's theory was not only about monks, myths, or literature, it is about us, here and now. The shadow has simply changed costume. Instead of appearing as demons in dreams, it may show itself in addictions, obsessions, or the masks we wear online. Consider social media. We project perfect images, smiling faces, curated lifestyles, declarations of virtue. But beneath the screen, anxiety, jealousy, and desire boil. A scroll through endless images of beauty and wealth may awaken envy we deny, or lust we refuse to admit. What do we do then? Often, we attack others online, shaming them for the very impulses we cannot face. Digital life has become a new theater for projection. Jung would recognize this instantly. The more we polish our persona, the mask of perfection, the hungrier our shadow becomes. And unlike in the past, where repression happened in temples or villages, today it unfolds on a global stage. Millions watch as scandals erupt, influencers are canceled, or politicians are exposed. Each fall from grace is a reminder. The shadow cannot be hidden forever. Consumerism, feeding the hidden hunger. Modern society promises us fulfillment through consumption, new clothes, new gadgets, endless entertainment. But beneath this glittering surface, there is a gnawing emptiness. Jung warned that repressing spiritual and emotional needs often turns them into material cravings. Think of the endless advertisements suggesting happiness lies in possessions. The car becomes a symbol of power, the perfume, a promise of desire, the phone, a mirror of status. But these are masks. Beneath them, the shadow whispers, "What you seek is not objects, but meaning." The result? A restless cycle. People chase possessions yet remain unsatisfied. The shadow, unacknowledged, pushes for more food, more alcohol, more stimulation. Addiction itself can be seen as the shadow's rebellion against a life of denial. What is not faced consciously will demand attention unconsciously, even destructively. The private war within. For individuals, the shadow often emerges in moments of crisis. A man who prides himself on calm may explode in rage at home. A woman who suppresses her ambition may sabotage others unconsciously. Couples accuse each other of flaws they secretly battle within themselves. Therapists see this daily. A patient dreams of a dark figure, only to realize it represents traits they despise in themselves. Another patient feels trapped by guilt until they admit a desire they never dared to speak. Jung believed therapy was not about eliminating the shadow, but about dialogue with it, inviting it into awareness rather than pretending it doesn't exist. The great danger lies in denial. When people insist, "I am not angry, I am not jealous, I am not afraid," the shadow only grows stronger. Like a suppressed cough, it bursts out at the worst time through violence, betrayal, or breakdown. Jung compared it to a tight spring. The more pressure you apply, the more explosive the release. Artists, rebels, and the shadow. Some of the most influential figures in art, science, and philosophy were those who faced their shadows directly. Friedrich Nietzsche dared to speak of humanity's hidden drives, though it drove him to the edge of madness. Pablo Picasso poured violence and passion into canvases, breaking artistic tradition to reveal a raw truth. Even Carl Jung himself was not spared. In his private red book, he recorded visions and dialogues with figures from his unconscious, terrifying, surreal, and profound. For years he feared people would think him insane. But Jung understood that by confronting these inner images, he was not destroyed but transformed. His work was born from the courage to face what others fled. Rebels and innovators often carry this trait. They do not hide from their shadow. They wrestle with it, turning its chaos into creativity. This does not make them saints. Many lived turbulent lives. But their willingness to embrace darkness allowed them to bring forth light for others. The shadow in society today. If we step back, we see entire nations wrestling with shadows. Collective anger erupts in protests, wars, and political divides. One group projects its fears onto another: immigrants, outsiders, rivals, blaming them for problems that may in fact lie within. Social media amplifies this cycle, turning projection into spectacle. Jung warned that humanity's greatest threat is not natural disaster or external enemy. It is the darkness within ourselves, multiplied on a mass scale. The 20th century proved him right with wars and genocides. The 21st century, with its technology and global reach, faces the same danger. Denied shadows do not vanish, they spread. But Jung also offered hope. If individuals begin the work of integration, societies can change. If enough people dare to admit their own contradictions, envy, and desires, perhaps projection will weaken. Perhaps we will persecute each other less and listen more. Living with the shadow. So, what does it mean to live with the shadow? It does not mean indulging every desire or glorifying darkness. It means honesty. To say, yes, I am human. I feel love and hate, faith and doubt, purity and lust. To carry both without shame is the beginning of wholeness. Jung often quoted an alchemical motto: "In filth, it will be found." The treasure of the psyche is hidden in the very places we least want to look. The shadow, frightening as it is, holds keys to our creativity, vitality, and compassion. When we face it, we stop being ruled by it. Look at myths again. The hero does not slay the dragon, only to destroy it. Often, the hero drinks the dragon's blood, takes its treasure, or absorbs its strength. In other words, the shadow is not the enemy, it is the unclaimed half of our soul. The question is not whether we have a shadow. We all do. The question is whether we will deny it, letting it erupt in destructive ways, or whether we will face it, integrate it, and walk forward with both light and darkness in balance. The monsters we fear outside are often echoes of what sleeps within. To see them clearly is to awaken. Join us, subscribe, and explore the hidden depths of the soul.